seen it.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. Subscribe to YouTube so that you can get notified when we post new episodes, and you can watch or listen in shorter segments of time, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 minutes. Also, you can see the shorts, which are just short clips of the show. Last week we did a call with my dad about legacy and Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, and that clip is trending right now. So
very cool.
It's pretty neat. My dad's a pretty famous guy.
Yeah, excellent.
I wanted to talk more about estate planning and this trust for the spouse. There's several different reasons that you would use this. One I mentioned last segment was if you have children from a prior relationship and you want to make sure that your surviving spouse still gets to use the money, prevent your children from being disinherited. Another thing is that some people just hate the idea, what happens if my spouse remarries after I'm gone? Is that guy going to get to use my money? Does that bother you? If you passed away and Erin got remarried and she got to live in your house and use your cooking tools and your home studio. You're awfully silent.
Well, you gave me a lot to think about.
Okay. Well, I'm very passionate about no.
Yeah.
I don't want that guy to use my stuff.
Yeah. Some new guy. Imaginary new guy, I hate you already.
Right. Yeah.
Get out of Todd's house.
Right. Or think about it with your children.
Yeah.
Let's say you pass away, you leave an inheritance for your children.
Yeah.
And then, God forbid, tragedy strikes. Your child dies and leaves everything to their spouse.
Yeah.
And then they hook up with some replacement spouse.
Right.
And then that money goes to their kids.
Yeah.
Your money goes to people you don't even know.
Right. Wow.
So you can use a trust to stop that from happening. We can take some calls right now if you're interested in asking a question. You can call. Today's June 21st, 2025. You can call 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867, and we'll do our best to answer your question live on the air.
But how do they micromanage that? Because so it's a piece of paper and it says this has to happen and this has to happen. But people have, rights. They have, we have a constitution that protects people's rights. So you kind of have freedom. Like, what if there's something in there that...
Well, yeah, the law does explain. There are court cases that say what restrictions or what commands are not legal.
Yeah.
But remember that the trust is a set of instructions, like you explained, of how to use the money.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really have anything to do with that person's constitutional rights. It's just you get money for this or this or this, and the trustee is the person that carries out the instructions. So you can name your spouse as the trustee, and your spouse could decide how to interpret those instructions, and maybe even violate the terms of the trust. That's what we call the fox guarding the hen house.
Oh, okay.
So if you're worried that your spouse isn't going to follow your wishes and follow the instructions, then you name somebody else to be the trustee.
Oh, I gotcha. I did not fully understand how interesting your area of law is. This is very...
Well, I'm so glad you're finally interested.
Well, my brain does gloss over a little bit when I hear estate planning.
Yeah. So,
But which is why I admire you.
Oh, thanks.
You were wise to choose this field.
Well, I
Did it
think
choose you or did you choose it?
that's a great question. We can talk about Todd's mindset and philosophies for a minute. I was sitting in Wills and Estates class, and we were talking about, I don't even remember the topic, but at the bottom of the case book, there was a footnote that said something about elder law as like a new type of practice focus, and God spoke to me.
Wow.
Said, that's what you're going to do.
What a good feeling to be so confident of that, to know you're in the right field.
Well, I didn't know I was going to be in the right field, so to speak. He said that's what you're going to do.
And you're like,
so
God,
I
are you
was like,
sure? Like, I don't...
No, I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. And years later, I kind of put the pieces together and figured out why it was a good area of law for me. I had been to a meeting at another lawyer's office where we were doing this joint interview of a prospective client about the issues that she was having and the lawsuit that she wanted to file. And the attorney was a real jerk. Just the way that he was asking questions.
Yeah.
And he would say, I don't want to know about that.
Yeah.
I'm asking about this.
Right,
and,
right.
he was really abrupt.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, somebody said, Todd, I really appreciate how you listen to me.
Yeah.
And I figured out it's because I was largely raised by my grandparents.
Oh, wow.
My parents were divorced. My dad worked all the time. I only saw him a couple of times a week. And my mom worked. She woke up at 4:30 in the morning, came home, cooked dinner, then I would go play outside and, say goodnight, and that was it.
Yeah.
But especially in the summers, my grandparents would drive me to swimming lessons. I'd ride my bike over to their house.
Yeah. Both sets?
Yeah, we all lived in the same town, so
Wow.
I was very blessed that way.
Yeah.
But, grandparents are constantly telling the grandchildren anything.
Yeah.
Because you have a captive audience.
Right,
these
right.
kids in the back seat.
Yeah. I think you get chattier as you get older, too.
Right, right.
You tell good
and
stories.
so I love listening to the stories.
Yeah.
And so God put that in my heart. I just on blind faith said, okay, that's what I'll try and do. And it wasn't easy. I didn't find a job right away. I had to go hunt
Right.
for a job.
Right.
But God would open doors along the way. So I hope that gives you some perspective on why I like
Great
estate
story.
planning and elder law. But I want to get back to a trust for the spouse, because there's a third reason that you might use this. And it's if you have millions of dollars. So there's an estate tax that applies only if you have more than $13,990,000. And so if you do have that much and you want to leave it to your spouse, you can leave it in a qualified terminable interest property trust that qualifies for the marital deduction. It does all that other stuff that we talked about. You can provide the income for your spouse for the rest of her life. And I always talk about it as if the husband dies first. Mm-hmm. You know why husbands die before their wives?
Why?
Because they have wives. Ha!
I don't even get it.
You have to be a husband to get it, I guess. Anyway.
But Todd, why doesn't the wife just automatically get it? And she would have to pay tax?
That's another great question.
I know,
It's
right?
for a different reason. Well, in Texas, there's community property.
Right.
And the law presumes that after you get married, everything that you earn and everything that you acquire is going to be one half owned by each spouse.
Right.
So technically, when I die, my wife is going to get to keep her half. So I can't give away her half. I can't put conditions on her half. That's hers. But my half, I can do whatever I want with.
I gotcha. I follow the distinction
I could leave it
now.
to the Red Cross or the NRA, or I could leave it directly to my kids. But most couples that are happily married want to make sure that the surviving spouse is taken care of. And because they've had a combined income, for years probably, and combined assets, they want to continue to keep the combined assets. So I can give it to her in trust so that she can use, but then whatever's left goes to the kids. That way, if she remarries, the guy that she remarries can use her half of the money, but not my half of the money.
Yeah, hands off replacement Todd.
And so you can use that same principle and defer estate taxes only if you follow the rules of the QTIP.
Okay.
So for short, estate planning attorneys call it a QTIP trust.
Okay.
It's not the thing you use to clean out your ears.
Yeah.
It's just special provisions that the IRS knows will qualify for estate tax purposes. You could leave all your money to your spouse and have 14 or 24 million, and you don't have to pay estate taxes, but you can't put restrictions on it.
Okay.
So that's part of the rules. But then the surviving spouse is going to have to do more estate tax planning to make sure that you're not wasting money on taxes. See, I believe what Jesus said. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's,
Okay.
but not a penny more.
Yeah.
So I think it's a waste of money if you have to pay estate taxes. I don't think that the government is a good steward of resources. I think that I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to say what the money should be used for. And I could leave it to charity, or I could, leave it to my kids if I think that they're going to be a good steward of resources.
Maybe you're going to get to this, but could you put a provision that she has to take Lexi to get a pedicure every week?
That's a great idea. There is such a thing as a pet trust. And so I can leave money for Lexi's benefit, name a trustee and a caretaker to take care of her. And I have not signed that yet, and I need to do that. Yeah, how much money do you think Lexi needs for the rest of her life?
Well, you would be in a better position to answer that question.
Well, she does have a beauty appointment every month.
Uh-huh.
Every year she has to do the flea and tick exam. And then every year she has to have vaccines. Then she has to have dog food. And she has to have a constant supply of new toys.
Okay.
And so I could look at my subscription for her, the toys that come in the mail. I won't mention the company because they don't sponsor the show. If you want to sponsor the show, I'll talk all about you and go on and on and on so that the listeners buy your products and services. All you have to do is go to talklawradio.com and click the button that says, "Want to be a sponsor."
Just if you're super cool.
Yeah, it has to be a cool product or service, and we have to like it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about estate planning, elder law, and business law. After we come back from the break, we'll talk about the sinners and the saints. Then we'll talk about elder law. So stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.